The engine roared to life beneath me, a deep, trembling growl that felt like the heartbeat of something alive and dangerous. Inside the Panzer IV, the air was heavy with oil and metal, hot even in the morning chill. My fingers were numb around the control levers, my breath fogging the periscope glass. Outside, dawn crept slowly over the frost-covered fields, the first rays of light catching the steel hulls of the tanks lined up ahead of us. We were somewhere near Kursk, though to be honest, the names of places blurred together after a while. Just fields, forests, and villages torn apart by shellfire. Our orders were simple: push forward, hold ground, and survive long enough to do it again tomorrow. Simple but never easy. The commander's voice snapped through the intercom. Loss. Move out, I pushed the throttle, and the beast lurched forward, treads grinding through frozen mud. The sound was deafening inside the steel coffin, metal clanking, gears whining, shells rattling in their racks. It wasn't the kind of noise you got used to. It just became part of the fear. I could see only through the narrow slit of my driver's periscope, just a small rectangle of the world ahead. The horizon was gray and endless, broken by the dark line of trees. Somewhere beyond that line, the enemy waited. You never knew exactly where until the first flash of light, the first shell screaming toward you. Our gunner Otto hummed under his breath, he always did before combat. A strange, calm tune. Maybe it kept his hands steady. The loader Ernst was sweating already despite the cold, wiping his palms on his trousers. We all had our rituals. I just whispered a prayer to whatever god still listened to men like us. The radio hissed with static, then came the warning, T-34's ahead, 200 meters. Before the words finished echoing, the world exploded. The ground shook as our lead tank took a direct hit. I saw the flash through my scope, then only fire and black smoke. The commander barked orders, Otto swung the turret, and our cannon thundered. The blast shook my bones. Through the scope, I saw our shell strike a Russian tank square in the turret, flames blooming out like a flower from hell. Inside, the heat built fast. Every explosion outside sent waves of dust and fumes through the cabin. The smell of gunpowder, diesel, and sweat mixed into something you never forget. My mouth tasted like metal. I could hear Ernst shouting, reload, and the clunk of another shell being slammed into the breach. Forward, the commander yelled. I drove us into the smoke, blind, trusting his voice, trusting luck. You don't think about dying in those moments. You just think about not stopping. We pushed past the wreck of the lead tank. For a split second, I saw the crew, burning figures slumped over open hatches. I forced my eyes forward. You couldn't afford to feel it. Not then. Later, maybe, when the noise stopped. But not now. Machine gun fire rattled across our armor like rain. The sound was sharp, metallic, constant. I could hear bullets pinging off the hull. A ricochet screamed off the periscope glass, cracking it slightly. I ducked instinctively, even though there was nowhere to go. Enemy infantry on the right, the commander shouted. Otto rotated the turret, the heavy barrel groaning as it turned. A moment later, the coaxial machine gun opened up. The staccato rhythm filled the cabin, casings bouncing off the floor, the smell of hot brass thick in the air. Through the narrow slit, I saw flashes in the distance, men diving for cover, smoke rising where they had been. Hours blurred into minutes, minutes into eternity. Time in battle doesn't flow, it snaps. 1 second you're breathing, the next you're choking on smoke, praying the next shell misses. By midday, the fog had burned away, and the battlefield was a wasteland of fire and twisted steel. Tanks burned on both sides. The sky was smeared with black smoke, and the sun hung above it all like an indifferent eye. We were ordered to hold position near a half-ruined village. I parked the Panzer beside a collapsed barn, engine idling low. My hands shook as I removed my gloves, black grime under every fingernail, the smell of diesel embedded in my skin. Otto climbed out to stretch his legs, lighting a cigarette with trembling fingers. For a moment there was quiet, the kind of silence that feels wrong after hours of noise. The only sound was the ticking of the hot engine and the crackle of distant fires. I climbed out too, boots crunching on shattered glass and frozen mud. The air outside was worse than inside: smoke, burnt rubber, and the faint, sickly smell of death. All around us lay pieces of what had been men, tanks, houses. War didn't destroy, it erased. Ernst muttered something about home. None of us answered. Home felt like another lifetime. As the sun dipped low, new orders came, hold through the night. Reinforcements were delayed. That meant we were the line now. The thought sat heavy in my chest. Inside the tank again, darkness crept in. We turned off the lights to avoid being spotted. The only glow came from the small crack in the periscope and the ember of Otto's cigarette. The air was stale, claustrophobic. I could hear the faint rattle of the cooling engine, the steady breathing of my crew. Then came the distant rumble. Artillery far away at first, then closer. The ground trembled again. The commander cursed under his breath. "They're probing the line," he said. We braced. I gripped the controls, knuckles white. The first shell hit somewhere behind us, then another, closer. Dirt and shrapnel rained on the hull. Otto whispered, "Here we go again." And just like that, the night came alive with fire. The shells whistled overhead, each one tearing the darkness apart. The sky lit up in red and orange flashes. I drove forward on instinct, eyes flicking between gauges and the narrow window of light ahead. Otto fired again and again. The recoil rocked the tank. Every shot was a prayer, every explosion an answer. When dawn finally came, we were still there. Smoke drifted over the fields like fog over a graveyard. Half our platoon was gone. The rest of us sat in silence, faces gray with soot and exhaustion. I looked out through the cracked periscope and saw the world bathed in pale morning light. Bodies lay scattered like forgotten dolls. The war had moved a few hundred meters forward. That was the price. The commander lit a cigarette and exhaled slowly. "Good work," he said softly. His voice was hollow. I nodded, not because I believed him, but because that's what soldiers do. I turned off the engine. For a moment, the silence felt unbearable. No growl, no thunder, just the wind moving through the ruins. That was the sound I hated most of all. Because it meant we'd survived. To do it all again tomorrow. Morning came gray and hollow. The engine was silent. Only the faint tick of cooling metal. We'd survived the night, barely. Inside, the air was thick with oil and sweat. No one spoke. Otto finally muttered. 3 tanks left. His voice sounded older. Ernst stared at the floor, his fingers trembling around an empty shell casing. I opened the hatch. Cold air hit like glass. The field below was ash and smoke. Black silhouettes of tanks jutted from the snow. Some still burned faintly. The smell, diesel, flesh, and dirt, hung over everything. The commander climbed up beside me. He smoked in silence, eyes sunken, face gray with soot. "Replacements tonight," he said. I nodded, though neither of us believed it. Orders came before noon. Advance again. Always forward. Never back. I dropped into the seat, hands raw on the levers. The Panzer roared alive, vibration climbing through my bones. That sound once meant power. Now it meant another roll of the dice. We crawled through a ruined village. Walls collapsed, windows shattered. A child's doll lay in the mud. A woman stepped from a doorway, white cloth in her hand. The commander shouted for her to move. She didn't. I looked away when the gun fired. You stop looking after a while. Snow turned to slush beneath the treads. The ridge ahead was scarred and black. Through the periscope, I saw movement. Shapes in the fog. T-34s. Dozens. Positions. Otto loaded fast. Ernst braced himself. My pulse hammered with the engine. The first enemy shell hit short, throwing mud over the hull. The second screamed past, close enough to shake my teeth. We fired. The blast slammed through my chest. Smoke filled the cabin, and for a heartbeat,